Alright guys, let's do this long, detailed practice test video. Just make sure you take advantage of it. The first three, let's take one at a time here. Let's take this first one. What you need to do in these is remember, whatever comes out of the sine or cosine always start at 0 and go to 2 pi. So if you'll take what's in your parentheses right there after the sine or cosine instead of equal to 0 and equal to 2 pi, it will tell you where your graph or where your cycle should start and stop. So just move the pi over there, it gives you pi. If I move that pi over, it gives me 3 pi. So my graph is going to start at pi, ended up at 3 pi, and you can see up there that it did. So because it's sine usually starts at 0 and goes up, down, up. But because there's a negative in the front, it's going to go down, up, down. And because there's a 2 in the front, it's going to go down to 2, up to negative 2. So it goes down to negative 2 there, back up to positive 2, and then back down. Remember, 4 slashes, and all 4 slashes are ticks on your graph. Something happens. The plus 1 moves the whole graph up 1. So instead of beginning at 0, it begins at 1, goes down to negative 1, back up there, back up there. Just take each one of those points and shift them up 1. You got to give 3 answers over here. The amplitude is the number in the front. It's always positive. The period is how far from where you start to where you stop. The midline is whatever your last number is, because that's where the middle of your graph got shifted to. It's usually at 0. It's usually the x-axis, but it gets shifted up on that one. Number 2 is the same way, except it's cosine. Cosine, again, usually goes from 0 to 2 pi, but there's a 4x here, so you take the 4x, set it equal to 0. Take the 4x, set it equal to 2 pi. Divide by 4, that's still 0. If you divide this by 4, you end up with pi over 2. So my graph's going to go from 0. Pi over 2 should be your 4th tick on your graph. Cosine usually starts at 1, it goes down, up, but because there's 2 in the front, which is the amplitude, it starts at 2, point there, point at negative 2, point on the x-axis, point up at 2 again, where you start all over again. But there's a minus 1, so you take the point that was at 2 down to 1, the 0 down to negative 1, the negative 2 to negative 3, the 0 down to negative 1, and the 2 down to 1. Then draw your graph, and you're good to go. Period is how far you went from 0 to pi over 2. Amplitude, number in the front. Midline, last number every time. Number 3 is tangent. That's one is a little bit different. Tangent has asymptotes. The asymptotes are usually at pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. So what you do is you take what's after the tangent right there and set it equal to pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. And I messed that one up in class. I just noticed the 1/2. So let's do that one again. We'll do that one live. That's even better probably. So I'm going to take the 1/2. X plus pi, set it equal to negative pi over 2, and take the 1/2 x plus pi, and set it equal to positive pi over 2. So with tangent, there's always negative pi over 2, positive pi over 2. Now, what I'm going to do first is multiply both sides by 2, gives me x plus pi. If I multiply that side by 2 over here, the 2's would cancel, they give me negative pi. If I move that over there, it would give me negative 2 pi. So that's where I'm going to draw one asymptote. Same thing here, multiply both sides by 2, I get x plus pi is 2 pi, move this pi over there, I get 1 pi. So my graph should go from negative 2 pi to positive 1 pi. So that's where the asymptotes would go. So if I draw my graph, I'm going to go negative 2 pi over here, positive 1 pi over here, asymptote through there, asymptote through there. Now the graph should cross the x-axis right in between, right in the middle, like about, it'll actually be at negative pi right there. That's where it should cross. But if you look back at the equation, it's been shifted up 2 at the end. So I'm going to go up 2 and label this on your graph. I'm going to go up 2, put the point there, and that's where the middle is, so the graph will do this. And if you do that, you're in good shape. Sorry about the mess up in class. All right, number 4. Take the points, as you can see I've already done, take these points right here, put them on your coordinate, on your graph right here in your first quadrant. And then what you need to find first is, let's say, midline. The midline is halfway between the bottom and the top. It's almost, and you need to estimate this a little bit. I went from 0 to 15. If you went 0 to 13, you get a better answer, but I'll take either one. 0 to 15, half of that is 7.5, so that's your midline. Your midline is 7.5. Now, if your graph goes to 0, your midline is also your number that goes in front of your amplitude, because if I'm at 7.5 on this graph over here, if I'm at 7.5 right here, that means I'm going to go up 7.5 and down 7.5 to get back to the ends of the graph. So Put that there. Because the graph didn't start at 0, it started over at 1, I'm going to put an x minus 1 right here. And to figure out what my period is, the power 6, period also always equals 2 power b. And because it goes from 1 to 12, the period is 12, so I just cross multiply 12b, divide by 12, get power 6, put it right there. And that's it. That's all you do for your own. You can get this equation, your second equation, by punching in a calculator, and they should be fairly similar. You can kind of tell when you get done, if you got the first part right or not. Here's the second one. Did the same thing, but it is a tad bit different, so I'm looking for the midline. I estimated my lowest point to be about 40. My highest point was up at about 80. Halfway between 40 and 80 is 60, so there's my midline. That's my last number. If my midline's 60 and it goes up to 80 and down to 40, that means the amplitude is 20, so I put a 20 right there. It's been shifted 1 to the right, so I did that again. And the same deal, it went 1 to 12. Guys, anytime you have 1 to 12, you're going to do this right here. And I think at least one of them on your test tomorrow is 1 to 12, so that's going to be power 6 right there. Punch them in your calc, go to sign reg, see what it gives you, and it is so close. Look at those numbers. That is really good. And you should be pretty close. All right, once you get to 6, it's kind of what we did yesterday. So you have 10 cards. Event A is choosing a number less than 8. Now, when it says less than 8, oops, I thought that said less than 6. Gosh, this is good. Less than 8 would be 1 through 7, which is 7 out of 10. So your answer should be 7 out of 10. Sorry about that. Part B, less than 8 are the numbers 1 through 7. I wrote those there. And event B is an even number. Gosh, I wrote odds. I did really good on this thing. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And it wanted to know intersect. How many, probably that they intersect. So what do they have in common? They both have 2, 4, and 6. All right, because it said less than 8, you can include 8. So that's 3 out of 10 that they have in common. So your answer should be 3/10 right there. That's awesome. This is a great video. And the last part here, part C, says complement of A. What is not in A? It says less than 8. The complement is would be what is not less than 8, which would be 8, 9, and 10, which is 3/10. I did get that one right, thank goodness. Number 7, you choose a card at random from a deck of cards. What is the chances that you do not choose a red king? There are 2 red kings, and I always remember we did this day, I kept on looking for that word not. When it was not, I always did 1 minus. What if it was? There are 2 red kings, king of hearts and king of diamonds. So I'm going to do 1 minus the 2 kings, 2 out of 52, which gave me 50 out of 52. Because 1 is really 52 out of 52. And if you reduce 50 over 52, you get 25 over 26. Number 8, you're rolling 2 dice. One's white, one's red. You're going to find the sum. What are the chances it will be 6? You can't see it over here, but what I basically did, remember there are 36 different sums you can get. We drew that picture on the board the other day, all the sums you could get. The ways you can get 6, you can get a 4 and a 2, you can get a 2 and a 4, you get a 3 and a 3, a 5 and a 1, or a 1 and a 5. That's the only ways you can get a 6, and there's only 5 ways. So you had a 5 out of 36 chance of getting a sum of 6. Let's look at number 9. Number 9, you choose a card from a standard deck at random. What is the probability that you do not choose a jack? Okay, there's that word again. There's the word not. Anytime I see the word not, I'm going to go 1 minus that it is. There are 4 jacks in a deck. So 1 minus 450 out of 52. Remember, 1 is 52 out of 52. That gives you 48 out of 52. If you reduce that, you're at 12/13. Number 10, research lab, trying to get an access code. You can do digits 0 through 9, which is 10 digits. You cannot repeat any. What are the chances that a scientist is randomly assigned a code of those 4 digits? So they're going to pick, that's the number on the bottom is how many ways you can pick 4 numbers out of 10. So that gave me a big number. Number on the top, since I need these digits, 1, 2, 3, 4, they don't have to be in that order. If they had to be 1, 2, 3, 4, I'd put 1 out of whatever. But because you can mix those up as well, you need to do 4P4 on the top, punch it all in your calc, and you get 1 over 210. Number 11, how many permutations are in the letters of the word Mississippi? I got a good Mississippi joke for you tomorrow. Remind me and I'll tell it to you. It's not really good. It's really stupid, but you might like it. There are 11 letters altogether. You do 11 factorial. Remember, this is what you do when you have stuff that repeats. There are 4 S's, there are 4 I's, and there are 2 P's. Make sure you put parentheses around your denominator, and good night. There are 34,650 ways you can rewrite the word Mississippi. Number 12. Okay, this goes to what we did today, and so was that one. But there are 10 runners in a race. Medals awarded for first, second, and third place. How many different ways can the medals be awarded? That's just a 10P3. There are 10 people altogether. 3 of them are going to win an award. How many different ways can that happen? 720. 13, school jazz band has 4 boys and 4 girls. They are randomly lined up for a yearbook photo. Find the probability of getting an alternating boy-girl arrangement. Now, first of all, I about messed it up. I wrote that at first. Then it hit me that there are 4 boys and 4 girls, which means they're repeating. So I need to mark that out. This is the total number of ways right there. You have 8 over 4 and 4 because there are 4 boys and 4 girls. They repeat. So that's the number that goes on the bottom. And on the top, alternating boy-girl arrangement, there are 2 ways you can do that. You can start with a boy and go boy, girl, or you can start with a girl and go girl, boy. So I put 2 over that number right there, and I reduced it on my calc, and it gave me 1 over 35. 14 is just like the ones on the front. I'm not sure why exactly. This is actually last week. This one has no shift up or down. That's the only difference. So what you can do here is, if you're confused here, take the 2x, because it's cosine, set it equal to 0. Take 2x, set it equal to 2 pi. Divide by 2 up here, you get 0. Divide by 2 right here, you get 1 pi. So you're going to start at 0, end at pi. Look at my graph. That's exactly what happened. The amplitude in the front is 2. Cosine starts up at 2. So I have a point here, point there. Stops at pi. Connect the dots, and you got the graph just like that. No big deal. Don't forget to tell what your amplitude and what your period is. Period, remember, is how far from where you started to where you stopped. 15. First thing you do is divide by 5. That gives you 17. Because I have an e and I need the exponent, you do natural log of both sides. So those just cancel right there. The natural log of e just cancels. Divide the natural log of 17 divided by 0.2. And you can see what I got right there. 16 is an interest problem. You should be getting good at these by now. Final amount over here, initial amount there, parentheses there. What I did first, I didn't show work here. I mean, I should have done that. I divided that into 8,000, and that's going to go 2 point something. I don't know what it is. Over here, I have 1.072 to the t power. Now, I need an exponent, which means I got to do log. Don't forget to log both sides. You can do log, you can do ln, it doesn't matter. So do log this side, do log over here, all right? Then just divide both sides by this log, 1.072, and you should get 11.2 years. 17, sum of a geometric, and I will give you this. I actually got a copy of your cheat sheet from the state, and this is on there, so I don't mind giving you that formula. But you need both of them really. That's the formula that's on there, but you need to go back and do that one. Let me make this bigger. You need to go back and do that one too, because you need to find what n is. I didn't know what n was, and we can go over that in class a little bit tomorrow, but what I did to find n is I divided that by 3, and it gave me, I think it's like 59,000 something, I can't remember exactly, 3 to the n minus 1. So I took my calc, and I just did I kept going 3 to some power until I found it, and it was the 10th power. But because it was 3 to the 10th power, that's n minus 1. N had to be 11. So I stuck an 11 right there in the formula, punched it all in. Be careful when you punch it in. It's a lot of parentheses, and got that big number right there. Hopefully that helped. 18, they give you radicals. They're different radicals, so you got to write them as fraction exponents. Remember, bottom is the root. So what I did is I did 2 things at once. I hope it's not too fast. I changed to 81. 81 is 3 to the 4th power. But because it's a cube root, I wrote it with a fraction like that, 4/3. Bottom is the root, top is the power. On the top, I have 3 to the 2/3 because bottom is the root, top is the power. When you multiply those two, you add the exponents. That would give you 3 to the 6/3. When you add them, 6/3 is really 2. 3 squared is 9. 20. What I had to do first is find an LCD. So I'm looking at the 4, the 8, and the 10. What do they all go into? They all go into 40. Then look at your y's. I have a y and a y squared. Always use the bigger one, so I use the y squared. Then you got to ask yourself, what does that 4y need to become 40y squared? And the answer needs 10y. So I multiply the top by 10y, and I got 40y down here. What does the 8 need? The 8 needs a 5, and it needs a y squared. So I did 3 times 5y squared, got 15y squared. The 10y squared just needs a 4, so I did 2 times 4, and I got 8, and that's all you do. Don't make that more difficult than it is, because it's really not that bad. All right, 21. Had a bunch of these. Find all the zeros. Make a list if you want to. If not, punch in your calc and see what happens. And I noticed it crossed at 3, so I put a 3 in the box, and I was hoping I would get 0, which I did. And it left me with this stuff right here. Left me with all that. All right, that's my new equation. that means it was, if I wrote it, of course I didn't, I did that in my head. What that left me with was x squared plus 4 equals 0. So what I did is I moved the 4 to the other side, like this. I took the square root, and I got plus or minus 2i when I did that. So those are my two answers. Now I'm going to tell you something. On your test tomorrow, what you get down here is not going to be quite that easy to work out. You're going to get 3 numbers down here. You're going to have to come over here and write them like that with like an x squared and an x and a constant number. And then you got to sing your x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4c all over 2a to solve that tomorrow. So in 21 tomorrow, you got to do quadratic formula. 22, expand that one. I put the answer. I was trying to hurry today when I was writing your answers, but it goes like this. It starts with x cubed. Your second term starts with the main exponent. The x's go down. The y's start coming up. Your next term, you have the x's are going down. Your 6's are coming up. And because those exponents are 2 and 1, like the last one was 2 and 1, I'm going to put a 3 right there also. And you're going to end up with 6 cubes. 4 terms because the exponent was 3. Now multiply. Don't forget to finish. 6 times 3 is 18. That's where that came from. 6 squared is 36 times 3 is 108. That's where that came from. 6 cubed is 216. That's where the rest of your answer came from. 23, I just did RF. It doesn't say I could not use a calc, so I used the calc, did RF. You need to make sure you remember how to do that in your matrix function in your calc and get that answer. 2 more, 24. It says graph the circle to write it in standard form. To write it in standard form, you're going to do this. Take your x's right there, put them together in a parentheses. Get your y's here and here, put them together in parentheses, and then you have to complete the square. This 1 right here and that 4 right there came from completing the square, which means I have to add on to both sides. That's why there's a plus 4 and a plus 1 over there. If you add up the right-hand side, you get 9, which is really good. Whatever your half was when you completed the square goes in your parentheses, and that's standard form, which tells me my center is the opposite of what's inside. My radius is 3 because the square root of 9 is 3. Now, look what happened to my picture over here. I went to -1, -2, then I went right 3, up 3, down 3, left 3. I actually went off the paper, off the graph. I'm going to tell you something, a secret here. Tomorrow, if you do this right, your graph is also going to go off your graph about like that one did. I'm not saying it's the same problem. It might be, but I remember making your answer key. It went off the graph right there, so make sure that happens. 25, solve by completing the square. Good, now we're still doing this. I cannot believe it. Move the 3 over first. It's -3. All right, you got to take half of 6, which is 3. 3 squared is 9. Add that to both sides right there. Once you add that to both sides, just add over here. That's 6. Over here, the half is what goes inside. So I'll put the -3 inside. Once you get there, you got to get rid of the square. So take a square root. That's where the next step came from. And then the last thing you do is move the 3 to the other side. And you get 3 plus or minus square root of 6. Okay, I'll put this on your Ed puzzle. Obviously you can skip again. Please watch it as much as you need to. Watch the problems as much as you need. If you don't need every problem, don't watch it all. But watch the ones you need over and over again. Make sure you're ready. And I'll see you in class tomorrow. We'll take a few questions, but not tons. So be ready tomorrow. See ya.